Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We caught up earlier today with James Anderson, CEO of VanGold Mining, TSX-V listed silver developer with assets in Mexico. And if you want our thoughts and opinions on the conversation today, their business plan, and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. We can also find detailed company reports. There's commentary from experts from around the world on a variety of companies and commodities. There are training videos on there to help you with your diligence. There are summaries of other interviews that we have done just to save you a little bit of time. Of course, there's a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, safe environment, free from trolling and abuse. How nice is that? So join them at cruxinvestor.com/club. We'd also love your feedback. So do give us your thoughts below. Give us a like if you could. And if you want to see what we talked about today, take a look in the description. James, how you doing, sir?
Very good, Matthew. How are you?
Fantastic. Happy New Year to you. It's getting a bit late to say that now, isn't it? But I'll say it anyway.
I'm not sure what the statute of limitations is on Happy New Year. So top of the New Year to you.
That's racist. Just my Irish roots being abused there. Right, James. Good to see you. We spoke back in October. It's that long ago. It feels long ago. Crikey. First of all, I got to ask, so did you have a good Christmas? Lots of R&R, or are you working hard?
No, not too much in the way of R&R. My family and I went up to Whistler, which is ski hill near Vancouver, for a few days. Only one day on the mountain because we had just announced a financing for VanGold. So I was spending most of my days gathering money for our company within our little
fantastic
ski chalet.
Ski chalet, okay, multitasking. Well, look, I quite enjoyed our story last time out because it was kind of complicated. We sat and talked about the business plan, strategy for delivering it. Went back because this is a very old former producing mine, and we talked around that. So people should go and look at the link below at that conversation. I think it's quite useful in terms of setting up what we're about to talk about today, which is some of these press releases that we've seen. So thank you very much for taking our call, first of all. But before we do, let's start with that obligatory 1-minute overview on the business for people new to the story, then I'll dig into it, okay?
Okay, very good. So 1-minute overview. When we spoke in October, I think we focused on our El Pinguico asset. This is a past producing silver and gold mine in the Guanajuato region in central Mexico. It was a very high grade mine in its day. And in fact, the company that owned the mine 110 years ago was listed on the New York and Boston stock exchanges. In December, what we have announced is our acquisition of a nearby mine and mill that previously was owned by Endeavor Silver Corporation. It's a 1,500 ton a day mill. And in terms of the business plan, whereas in the fall, people would ask quite often, well, where are you planning to ship your tons of stockpile material from our surface and underground material at Pinguico? Now we have a very definite plan. 8 kilometers away is a 1,500 ton a day mill that was operating up until just about 11 months ago. So that's what we will do.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. I think what you've done is kind of slightly demystify, because one of the conversations we had at the time was about, milling, sending the material at surface off to mill. You thought you might be able to make a couple of $1 million off of that. There was also material underground, which you thought you might be able to send off to mill. And, we're talking about $15-20 million at that point, but obviously there was a cost to doing that. Has this solved your problems?
Well, I think, solved our problems perhaps, but I guess the way that I would state it is that we're now in charge of our own destiny, rather than having to. But when there's toll milling, when there's custom milling being done, it's always a case of, well, the mill owner wants to make the lion's share of it. And there's ample examples of that in the mining business. Here, we're going to be able to have our own mill and mine the stockpile material, certainly, but there's in situ material both at Pinguico and El Cubo that we'll be able to mine on a go-forward basis.
Right. So you were more in control than you were. So that was the feeling we got in terms of being able to control the margin that you'd be allowed to make by these mills. So you better tell us about the terms of the deal. I know there's lots of other things to talk about, but let's stick with El Cubo first. So what have you agreed to buy? What's it going to cost you? How are you going to pay for it? What are the terms?
Okay, so The El Cubo mine and mill complex is a 1,500 ton a day mill. There's also about 500,000 tons of measured, indicated, and inferred material. Most of it's in the inferred category, but some of it's very low-hanging fruit and available to the mill almost immediately. At good grade, it's about 330 grams of silver equivalent, and about 7,000 hectares of ground that is adjacent to and in this 480-year-old mine camp. So that's very important as well. As a matter of fact, and we're paying $15 million US for it. That's $7.5 million US in cash, $5 million worth of our shares, which will make Endeavour Silver our largest shareholder, and $2.5 million in 12 months' time.
Okay, got it. So you're roughly about 30 million market cap today. You had between $3 and $4 million when a little bit more, maybe a little bit more, about $4 million when we last spoke. You'll have gone through a bit of that. You've just done a private placement for $7.5 million. So it's still all a bit tight, isn't it? Because you've got to hand over that $7.5 million straight away. You're going to be left with, say, $3.5 million. Okay, you've got to give Endeavour Silver $5 million worth of your current shares, because you haven't really moved since we last spoke to you. Thereabouts the same, as you were. Do you think the market is going to give you credit for doing this still once you get it over the line?
Yes, absolutely. Because I think that we will get a re-rating in the marketplace as Canada and Mexico's next newest silver and gold producing company. Pro forma, we should be able to be putting material through that mill as early as August of this year. And, you talk to these junior companies all the time, Matthew. People will brag about, the fact that they're only 3 years, only 5 years away on a direct path to being in production. We will be putting material through that mill this year.
Okay, but nameplate 1,500 tons per day, but you're not going to be starting off at 1,500 tons, are you?
We're not, and that's one of the strengths of the whole operation. So, a couple of things about this and a couple of sort of high-level talking points that we like to use. The last time that this asset changed hands was in 2012. Our friends at Endeavour paid $200 million US for this asset. So we're paying $15 million. We think we're getting an incredible deal for a number of different reasons. It's a 1,500 ton a day operation because Endeavour expanded it at that time. And what they were really looking to do was to try and expand the mine to be a bigger, more important operation. However, and I say this, with all the respect possible to our friends at Endeavour, but I think that they tried to expand El Cubo to the point that it could not work efficiently. You're taking a very normal central Mexican epithermal system that's high grade, but it's 1 meter and 1.5 meters wide, most of the vein systems there. So that's great, but if you're trying to mine it at 4 meter stopes so that you can get more material to pass through the mill, maybe that doesn't work very well on a economic basis. All that you're really doing is taking more dilution, putting that through the mill. So our plan will be to, number one, not run it at 1,500 tons a day, but run it at 750 tons a day. It will allow us to have all kinds of internal inbuilt redundancies within the mill, so that it's got 3 ball mills, for instance. So we'll run the 700 ton a day ball mill. We won't need to run the 500 and the 400 ton a day mill until such time as the big one breaks down, because that's what things do in a mill, is they break down from time to time. And then we will have little to no downtime as we switch over. So that's good.
I'm interested in this bit, and I wouldn't mind spending a bit of time on this one, because this is the difference between making money and not making money. Because if I look at Endeavour's numbers, okay, in 2018, their AISC on that was about just under $9, right? And let's, for the sake of the discussion, recognize that AISC, you can make the AISC kind of look like anything you want it to look like, but based on their formatting, they're just under $9. And then in 2019, it was just under $15. bucks. Are you saying that's not necessarily down to the grade of the material that they were finding there, but the way that they were trying to over-engineer the solution for processing their ore?
Yeah, I guess you can phrase it in a lot of different ways. Ultimately, if you're taking more dilution and putting it through the mill, then your head grade's going to go lower, right?
But what does that say for your 7,000 hectares that you've also picked up along the way?
Well, I think what it says to me is that there's an enormous amount of material that's left to be discovered and eventually put through the mill. El Cubo has been in production on and off for 200 years. Okay, the resource that we're getting is mostly derived from the larger 2 or 3 vein systems that exist at El Cubo, but parts of it are derived from 19 different veins. Okay. It's a big complex. It's famous there. They were mining it in the 1700s. People will be mining this for another 150 years at El Cubo.
Yeah, but they got to mine it economically. That's what I'm trying to get at. What do you know about?
Well, that's my point entirely. I mean, if you try and do a whole bunch of mechanized mining on a 1.5 meter wide vein structure, you're going to take a whole bunch of dilution, right, and put it through the mill, and that does not work nearly as well economically. Now, again, to be fair to the previous owners, when they shut it down, we still had silver that was $15 or $16. Having silver that's $23 or $24 helps an awful lot in terms of the economics. We're not any smarter than anybody else because of that. But if you take a 1,500 ton a day operation and shrink it to 750 tons, and moreover, have 2 mines within 8 kilometers of one another. So we're going to be able to move material from Pinguico and Cubo to this operation. That's always a good idea in the mining business.
I get it, but look, Endeavour Silver have got their own issues elsewhere. Okay, I'm not necessarily a big fan of Endeavour Silver, but they're still smart guys, and they put this in care and maintenance back in November 2019. Okay, silver was not what it is today, price wise, right? You're in the process. You've just started this discussion with them pre-Christmas, and I know you're still in a halt period here. It may be difficult to answer some of this, but given what they've seen go on with silver price in the market, why would they not have another go at this? I mean, they know what they've got. Why are they selling it to you?
Yeah, well, they're very smart guys, and the very first conversation that I had with Brad Cook about this, he said, James, like that, El Cubo just can't move the needle for us anymore. It's a big company. They got $1 billion market cap these days, and a lot of their other assets are working really, really well. So from their perspective, even if they were to do what we want to do, which is shrink it a little bit, run it for more ounces and less tons, I think it's unlikely that that's going to move the needle for a company like Endeavour. On a 30 and then pro forma $50 million market cap, after we do the financing, after we do the acquisition, can that move the needle for VanGold? Yeah, I think it absolutely can.
No, it can't for you. Your starting point's much lower. I get that, but for instance, why sell this mill to you? Why not relocate it if they've got bigger and better targets?
When was the last time you saw a mill relocated effectively?
Effectively,
I'm sorry, but you can sell the stuff for scrap. That's an alternative. They can take individual component parts. Does it fit into another mill? No. Selling it to us and becoming our largest shareholder. Brad Cook's a very smart guy and a very good market operator. He and I agree that they will make more money on our shares than on the cash component of this deal.
I hope so, for your sake. I hope so. Yeah. Should we? Okay. So that's technically what.
Well, you seem unconvinced.
No, it's not that I'm unconvinced, because I can't tell the future and I don't know what you're going to do. So yeah, I hope you do that. But there's a lot of moving parts, right? That's all I'm saying. So you guys got to deliver, like everyone else. You've got to deliver. Okay. So James, talk to me about all the moving parts, because last time we spoke, we talked about what you're going to be doing at Pinguico. You talked about the Veta Madre. You've got materials at surface. You've got material underground. So what's the order of play here? Because you've obviously raised a bit of cash recently. You've got the $7.5 million as private placement. You've also got a loan facility for the same amount, $7.5 million. And you've got obviously some capital that you've got left after that, say $3.5, $4 million, right? So how do you go about reorganizing or prioritizing all of those variables?
Yeah. I think that there is a fair bit of reprioritizing. Obviously, we're rather than looking around for a mill in the area that we can kind of bootstrap the Pinguico project and move some material through the mill and get some money for it. We're going to be in the mining business, and we're going to have our own mill that's operating. So first and foremost, we have to refurbish that mill. And I think I discussed that amply enough. We've got hoses and belts and filters to replace, but all of the component parts are there. Also, all of the tailings facilities are there. And I mentioned to an investor here this morning that go out and try to permit and build a new tailings facility anywhere on the planet these days. What's that going to take you? 3 years, 5 years? But we have that built and ready for use. So it's going to take several months to be able to refurbish the mill. We have hired Bear Dole Bear. That's the very old and established U.S. engineering consultancy firm from the United States. So they were there with us in November, starting all of their ample due diligence. They'll be able to have a PEA for us by the end of this month. So we'll be able to use their engineering along with our own. As you know, our Mexican partners are all mining engineers. So we'll be able to use both groups to be able to figure out exactly what we need to do to reestablish the mill.
Right. But just hit me with that priority order and how much money you're going to allocate to it, because $7.5 million goes straight off to Endeavour Silver, right? You've got $7.5 million loan, which I assume you're drawing down in one go up front, are you? Yeah. And what are the terms on that?
So the terms are after a grace period, which might be 4 to 6 months. We will repay the loan in gold and silver on a monthly basis. So the thing that I like about it, Matthew, is after 18 months, we're done. It's repaid. So in terms of the dilution that we're taking right now to be able to purchase El Cubo, to be able to get ourselves on our feet and be able to put material through the mill, how much dilution is I don't know, optimum. I think that we'll have a nice balance between equity and debt here at the beginning. 18 months later, it's all gone. And one thing that I would point out, as we start to repay that loan in gold and silver, at no time do we ever need more than 1/3 of our production to be able to repay that on a monthly basis. So we've got ample leeway and liquidity to move the business forward.
Okay, so what you're saying is outside any acquisition or M&A activity, you are not going to dilute shareholders anymore going forward?
Well, if I had a nickel for every time the CEO of one of these companies said this is the last financing we're ever going to do, there's other things that we want to do to be able to grow the company if it is actually accretive to shareholder value. Insiders own 25% of this company. Moreover, insiders are putting 25% of the money in on this financing. So we are perfectly aligned with shareholders in moving the company forward.
Which financing? The private placement, I assume you're talking about, not the loan. Right, okay. So what are the things that can hold this up? Because at the moment you're halted. Did that drill rig ever turn up?
Supposed to be arriving today after a 4-month delay. We'll see.
Okay, so same question. Is it, what are the things that are going to hold you up in terms of drawing that capital, that loan down, and the clock starts ticking at that point?
Well, I don't know that there's going to be anything holding us up in terms of drawing down that loan. Other things that we have to do, I mentioned, we need a PEA. We'll likely develop into a PFS going forward. there are things to buy, and in these days of COVID, sometimes requisition for industrial material gets delayed. So, are we 3 months, 4 months? But we're giving ourselves all the way to August to be able to refurbish a mill that was operating just 13 months ago. So
okay.
I think we've got ample time, and I think all of our timelines are realistic.
Right, and it's a binding agreement. There's no turning back. You guys are committed.
Well, we're committed. Within the body of the binding agreement, we need to establish with them a definitive agreement. The lawyers are working on that, and I was reviewing that agreement on the weekend. They want to sell it. We want to buy it. This isn't something that we just cooked up in the first week of December. We've been talking with our friends at Endeavor for 6 months about this. Okay,
so back to that priority question. Priority is El Cubo, then Pinguico, yeah? And then stockpiles. That's the order of play, you think?
Well, no, I don't think that I would phrase it like that, because, there's no point having a mill if you don't have material to put through it. There's no point having material to put through it if you don't have a mill. So we're going into the mining business. We will be actively refurbishing the mill while we are preparing. Now, the surface material at Pinguico, it doesn't need very much in the way of preparation. We proved that last June when we put 1,000 tons of material through Endeavor's other mill. So we know what the recoveries are going to be. We know what the average grade is. When you do 1,000 ton bulk sample from 175,000 ton resource, you gain a lot of knowledge. But we're also going to have to be spending some money in developing other in situ material, both at Pinguico and El Cubo. The exact timing of that and the exact sequencing of it, that will be established over the weeks and months ahead.
Okay. And Endeavor Silver get how many board positions?
None.
Wow, that's good. Well negotiated.
The part of the agreement is a 12-month lockup on their shares, as well as a voting trust for 2 years. I don't like to speak for Endeavor, but I think that they recognize how far we've moved this project along, and just Pinguico over the last 9 months. I think that they recognize our ability to be able to run El Cubo. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sold it to us. And I think they're very happy to be supportive shareholders on a go-forward basis.
12 months that's pretty good for a lockup. That's really good news. It's a bit of an overhang in 12 months' time, depending on what's going on, depending on what their needs are. But that's better than average. What's the voting component you talked about there?
Endeavor agrees to essentially, and the legalese is a little bit different than this, but essentially they agree to vote with management for a 24-month period.
Okay, excellent. Also good. Okay, well done. Can I just talk about the drill, which may or may not arrive today? What are your plans for that? Because obviously, that's all the blue sky.
Yeah, all of the ancillary work that's necessary to begin with, all of the sampling that we did in October and November, all of the channel sampling along both the number 4 adit level and on either side of the Pinguico shaft. So we have all of that data, all of it modeled in a computer model, but nuts and bolts on the ground. We have replaced all of the electrical transformers going into the mine. We have cleaned and chiseled away galleries at the end of the 2 crosscuts where we will be drilling initially. So that's all done, all prepared, all ready to go. Also, we've it sounds like a small thing, but we reworked some of the older buildings just as you go into level 4 to use as a core shack for storage and to review the core directly as it comes out of the mine.
Okay. Why is the exchange taking their time with this halt? It seems to be going.
Well, I don't know that they're taking their time so much with it. It's they deem it to be, quote, a fundamental acquisition by their rules. Okay. Since they made that determination on about the 20th of December, there weren't too many folks at home at the exchange to actually do anything in terms of the review that they feel is necessary. So we've gotten them all of the material we think that's necessary. They'll review it and opine about that. And then I think that the shares will trade within the next week or 10 days.
Okay. So, and that's you're saying that's a fairly standard time given the number of working days available to them.
I think so. I mean, I don't have to tell you, Matthew. I mean, we're doing a lot of different things. So, we're a small shop. Our ability to simply be able to provide them with everything that they need to review the project. But I mean, El Cubo is relatively easy to review. There's a 2017 43-101 that Endeavor produced that's in the public domain. They've got years of production data. So their ability to review this, I think, should be fairly quick. Okay.
And how the Dorados and all of this, your relationship with them, was this part of what they wanted to see? Or were you outgrowing them?
Well, they're ecstatic. I mean, Hernan will likely end up with a larger role in driving the whole thing forward. And having, with all candor, most of the Canadian and American and Australian companies that work in Mexico, at the end of the day, it's a Canadian American or an Australian that runs the show down there. That will not be the case with VanGold. We will have a chief operating officer that's Mexican and drive the growth of the company in Mexico from Mexico.
Right. Okay. And can you just remind me on the El Pinguico royalty purchase agreement?
Pinguico.
Pinguico. Potato.
Hey, that's racist.
I'm Irish. I can say that.
I know that's right. Oh, so you can say it, but no one else can. I see how this works.
We've come full circle.
Pinguico. If I haven't told you, the Pinguico is a bush. It's can be small, but it can get up to maybe about your size, and it has a little berry on it. And so throughout central Mexico, people will pick the berries and make jam out of it. So that's what a pinguico and sometimes pinguica is. Right. Usually it's a berry, so usually pinguica. Where were we going with that?
Well, we were going to talk about royalty purchase agreements, but we can talk about baking if you want. I'm good. Is it a nice cake? Is it a nice cake that you can make with it? These berries?
Well, the jam's nice. I suspect that you could make a pie out of it if you like.
That's good news. We'll put recipes below in the description. Yeah.
Well, these mining deals are all about the ingredients that we put into it, right? And we're putting in all of the right ingredients to make a nice pie out of it. I see what you did. The pie will be small enough, but there'll be lots of different pieces for everybody.
Wonderful. Should we talk about royalties there as well?
Sure.
Let's go for it. So where are you with that, the royalty purchase agreement? Is that?
Well, we gave the Dorados an initial payment in November. We'll have another payment for them in March, and then in March and March again in the next 2 subsequent years. And then all of those complex royalties at Pinguico will go away. And it is a win-win. It's absolutely a win-win now for VanGold shareholders, of which the Dorados have, through that repurchase agreement, become larger VanGold shareholders, which is extremely important. And when I was discussing this with Hernan and Gerardo months ago, this is the type of thing that I was envisioning, where we don't want our Mexican partners strictly interested in Pinguico. We want them interested in the entire growth of the company. And that's what we've managed to do.
Okay. So look, and you've got to manage money this year until midway through Q3. You say August. Let's say August, September, you get into production and you can start the process of generating cash, and you think that's you set, right? Are you good between now and then? You got enough cash?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we've got having Hernan and Gerardo as mining engineers and embedded in the company. They've always given me and us at head office excellent costing of all of this. The 1,000-ton bulk sample, it's a small operation, but we're able to derive a whole bunch of data from that. So we've got a very detailed internal cash flow model. Obviously, we're going to want, and for regulatory purposes need, a third-party engineering document to support that. But Bear is constructing that for us right now.
Okay. And it's like when you're running a small business, money comes into the organization, put their hands out, asking for more money. So how are you managing your remuneration of all the people involved?
Well, I think the best way to manage that really is again, Mexicans dealing with Mexicans. There's nothing worse than sending a Nordamericano to negotiate with someone from Latin America. Having Hernan and Gerardo able to, from a business standpoint, be able to walk in and say, no, we're not paying you that. That's not the going rate. That's very helpful, very powerful for our company.
That's good. That's good in terms of existing people. You're going to obviously have to employ more people as well as you go along.
Well, okay. I mean, first of all, au contraire, it's much easier for me to negotiate with existing people that they know that I'm not a horrible human being. But new people, to have those guys negotiate and help to negotiate new contracts, it's vital. To your other point, though, we've already hired, and your viewers will probably be able to look back and see some of the news releases that we put out, hiring several people who have not only Guanajuato experience, but direct El Cubo experience. The other person who we, that I don't know whether it'll make a news release, but someone that we've just hired is the old human resources, head of human resources at El Cubo. That person is going to be able to allow us to contact and hire, we think, a whole bunch of people who worked there before and would like their jobs back. So that's going to be very helpful for us.
Hopefully not the people who made the decision to increase the ASIC.
I don't think that those are decisions made at El Cubo.
Okay. That's good news then. Right. I have to ask. James, great. Well, things are really motoring along. I hope this halt comes off soon. People getting feet back under the table at the exchange. That would help. I hope the drill does arrive today. Do let us know. You can send me a note. I'll make sure people know. Because that could be good.
Well, I think that would put you in a position of being having inside information. So tell you what I'll do. I'll wait till we put out a news release and direct that to your email address.
Oh, Tom, you're such a stickler for this. These conditions. Don't worry
about it. Some of these rules
are
important.
Oh wow, it's fine. Well, I appreciate you kind of coming back on and giving some update. Looks like, say, things are heading the right way. You've got to keep delivering on it. I mean, August, September is when you're sort of charging violently towards, which is great news. You've got your finance in place, which is also good news. Stay in touch. Let us know how you get on, okay?
Okay, very good. Well, we'll be back in a few months with an update. Obviously there's lots of things going on. To your point, lots of moving parts. So we'll be able to give you an update and give your viewers and listeners an update on how we've advanced.
Beautiful. Okay, thanks, James. Speak to you soon.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.